All right, welcome back to Tables, Ladders, and Conversations. I'm Deremy Dove, and that's my tag team partner, Mr. Tim Lewis. And if you're watching, this is our recap to the new Netflix Hulk Hogan docuseries, Hulk Hogan Real American. In a previous video, we did episodes 1 and 2. So since this is a four episode docuseries, we kind of split it up. One video is 1 and 2. This video will be 3 and 4. And Tim, I think if you look at episode 1 and 2, which is really the beginning and the rise, then 3 and 4 is the fall in a lot of ways. And I mean, there's a rise again too, but a lot of peaks and valleys in these two episodes, right?
Absolutely. And while the first episodes, they're nice, it's a nice start and stuff like that to kind of get you like engaged and get you familiar with his story, especially if you don't know a story like that at all. But, episode 3 and 4 is where things get, they heat up. It gets ramped up now. What I'm saying? We're in the thick of it. It gets juicy, so it's definitely, like you said, peaks and valleys. And Hulk Hogan's career has definitely had like it's been a roller coaster for sure. Because you mentioned like this is definitely the fall, but he definitely has like a second peak, a peak run in the '90s. Like we talk about how big his run in the '80s was, like the '90s, you could say just as big, if not bigger. You know what I'm saying? Given what happens and stuff like that, and we'll get into all that in this episode, man. But I'm excited to get into this, man.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the start is you have to look at his own personal kind of downfall within the media, and then what was going on with WWF at the time. So when you get to the late 80s and into the early 90s especially, steroids start coming out and Hulk Hogan's name is thrown around a lot with that. Same with some other wrestlers, but of course who's the biggest as far as notoriety is Hogan. So he's the big target. And then WWF starts having scandals, whether it's the whole ring boy incident and different sexual assault scandals. And then steroids are being talked about with the company. So the company is really under the gun, and Hogan is as well. And you can kind of see Hogan, they tried to put Ultimate Warrior in the spot. Warrior beats him in WrestleMania 6, but Warrior couldn't handle the top spot, so they bring Hogan back. So I think it's interesting that from the outside, the public and like the media was coming after the company and Hogan, but also, Tim, the company and Vince McMahon were starting to look at Hogan differently as well.
Yeah, man. Like as they say, all good things eventually come to an end. The run Hulkamania started in 1984, January 23rd. Um, and of course, by the time we got to the 90s, the early 1990s, you could see Hulkamania starting to fade out. I think the last, like, hoorah for Hulkamania was probably WrestleMania. You could say WrestleMania 6, I think you could say. Because that was probably he was supposed to hand off the torch to Warrior. Like I feel like that would have been if he went out after that, if he retired after that, that would have been a great run. You can call it a career after that. But of course, Warrior, no, we know he wasn't really cut out for that top spot. And I know Hulk Hogan, he gets criticized a lot for like taking over creative control and stuff like that. But that was one of those times where like I get it now. I feel Hulk on this one.
Yeah.
I get him on this one. Like Warriors. Like I know Ultimate Warrior before he died, he changed his life around. He got it together, and that's great for him. But back during that time, like yeah, you can see he was difficult to work with. Like I remember they was talking like 3 minutes in, he was already gassed. He was like, "Let's go home. Let's wrap it up." He's like, Hulk was like, "What are you talking about? Like, man, we still got like 20 more minutes left. Like, you better, like,
Hmm.
you gonna get this work." So Hogan having to carry Warrior for that whole match, like I know that had to be excruciating.
Yeah, can I ask you a question that I
What's
wasn't
up?
thinking about going into this, but you kind of brought up a good point because you're right. In the docu series, episode 3, I think they talk about Hogan says Warriors like gassed so quickly. Are you especially with Hogan in the '80s and how using those roids and how big he was that he had some of those matches lasted decent amount of time. He didn't have like Iron Man matches or nothing like that, but going 60 minutes. Are you impressed that like Hogan had good stamina in the ring, for being a guy of that size?
Well, the difference is between him and Warrior is Hogan wasn't like sprinting to the ring like the Ultimate Warrior was. So that's probably why Ultimate Warrior was
Well,
gassed so
true, true.
early, you know. And I guess I don't know, maybe he just had better conditioning workouts or something like that. He probably had better cardio. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's like that is a mystery to me too. Because you see Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, they would go 60 minutes every night. Even Dusty Rhodes, he would go 60 minutes. You know, he was a big dude himself. Of course, Dusty wasn't on the gas either. So
I yeah, yeah. I just wonder because you would think certain guys just and that's why body types are so you can't assume and people want to judge body types because you would think Dusty Rhodes for you're right. He had 60-minute matches. He was kind of, you could say a thicker, like heavy set kind of guy, but he could go. Yokozuna, who we see in this episode, they talk about in his prime for being 500 pounds, could go and had stamina. Then other guys, and you're right, Warrior did get like really ramped up, but Hogan would get hyped too now before his matches and doing
yeah,
a lot of the pointing to the crowd and all that. Like that takes up energy. Not like Warrior, to your point, but it's just interesting, like why some guys you look at them, you're like they should be able to go for a while and they can't, and other guys can.
I think it's just conditioning. I think it's just cardio and conditioning. I think that plays a big part. You know what I'm saying? With wrestling, with other sports too, like basketball. Like think about basketball. You're running up and down the court. You know, 12 minutes for every quarter, up and down the whole game. Football. You're running up and down the field. For 4 quarters, every 15 minutes each quarter and stuff like that. So your cardio is really your best asset you can have. Stamina, that's your biggest asset you can have playing those sports or doing or any type of combat sports, especially too like boxing, same thing, because you're going like think about it, 10, 12 rounds. You want to be able to
Hmm.
last. So you don't want to get in there and blow up too quick. So I feel like for Warrior, him being a big guy, and we know he was on the roids too. I think him just sprinting down to the ring exerted a lot of his energy because he's running. You know what I'm saying? He's hyped up and stuff like that. He probably did a line of coke too, before the match or something like that.
Hmm.
And Hogan even talked about how, because he had a gym at his house, he would have, guys come work out at his gym at his house. He had Bruce Beefcake there. He would
Macho
have
Man, you saw.
Macho Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior. He said Ultimate Warrior was puking, you know what I'm saying? On the floor of Bruce Beefcake, he was like puking blood, probably because it may have been like an effect from like the steroids or something they
Yeah,
were probably
yeah,
using.
yeah.
So, I think that probably plays a part. I think Hogan, he probably just had better condition, better cardio and stuff like that. So I think, like I said, that cardio plays a part.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's fascinating. You brought up a good point. Mentioned that those guys, he said those guys used to come over and train. So to me, I think they looked up to him in a lot of ways with that. Not just he's the top guy, but he's a body. If they can get a body like like him, like that's. And I don't think Hogan wasn't the first guy to use steroids or nothing in wrestling. There's people before. I think Jesse Ventura to me probably did
Well,
some. Billy
that
Graham.
that was the culture. He said himself like that was the culture back then. You know what I'm saying? I don't think. I mean, I'm sure steroids has always been like illegal. I don't know, like in wrestling,
No, it
if we're
wasn't
talking.
illegal.
Yeah,
It wasn't illegal in like the
yes,
'80s and stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So it was just the culture, and also like it's part of the look, the whole illusion. Like you want to build that look up. You want to be the bigger you are, the more opportunities you get, the more booked you are. So I think that just played a big part in the culture. You know what I'm saying? And then by the 1990s, the laws had changed and they made it illegal and stuff. So I think that's where they got hit in the ass right there. So it changed the business forever. You know what I'm saying? Because of that.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, they did, and I think that's where a lot of stuff comes from. We can go to Hogan now under the gun for steroids, and a big part of Hogan's heat in the '90s after is he went on Arsenio Hall show. Now, did you know, according to Hulk Hogan, he got Arsenio Hall that job, as he said in the docuseries. Like,
Yeah, because he said they were tight. They were boys. They were
but I'm
friends for
like,
life.
I never heard Arsenio Hall mention Hulk Hogan. I've could there's been documentaries about the Arsenio Hall show these past few years. Arsenio Hall's been on interviews and recently he wrote a book. I need to go look up, but I don't have his book, but I never heard him mention Hulk Hogan being a factor in him getting the Arsenio Hall show. And Hogan
Yeah,
said, I got him his job. He was a friend. I got him his job. And I'm like, really?
yeah.
What did you ever
He's
hear that?
I never heard that. He said him and Arsenio were friends and stuff
I
like
could
that.
believe that.
He said he felt more comfortable going on his show talking about it rather than going on like somebody else's show, But he still went on the show and lied. If that's his friend, he still went on the show and lied to his friend's face. You know what I'm saying about you and all the other wrestlers like Jesse and everybody else. They were like, "Man, what are you doing, bro? You making us look bad." And, like, don't even say anything.
Well, Macho Man had gone on and told the truth. Macho Man had said on
Yeah.
Arsenio that he did it, and you know he it wasn't illegal, but he learned from it. It was a mistake, and they
Mhm.
said that Hogan, I wasn't there, you weren't there, but everyone said that like people were telling him just
Yeah.
tell the truth, admit it, apologize, move on, and he did not, and that really did wind up hurting him.
Yeah, that's where you start seeing like the decline of Hulkamania. You know what I'm saying? We mentioned like in the '80s he was the ultimate good guy. He's supposed to be like the personification of like what we see is like Superman being in real life. You know what I'm saying? And him going on the show and lying about that, like that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Like a lot of people who are diehard Hulkamaniacs, it's like, why'd you lie? You know what I'm saying? But of course, it wasn't like social media back then either. I feel like if that happened today, it would have been way worse. I think
Yeah,
it would have
yeah, yeah,
because he still because on T it's different because like yeah, if you watch the news at that time, like you had to catch it. Like you didn't have DVR, you didn't have streaming, so it's like you had to catch it as it happened. Otherwise, you might hear about it in the paper or something like that.
yeah. Papers were big. Yeah,
Yeah, but it wasn't social media or anything or internet, so it's like you either see it or you don't. And it's like one of those things where it's out of sight, out of mind. So it's like in a week or so, you might forget about it. So on TV, it didn't seem like that really affected them, at least not right away. But it did for the people that did see it and did talk, because word of mouth does catch on too. I feel like it did hurt them, I think, in the long run going forward and stuff like that. And you saw Hulkamania did start to phase out. People were kind of getting sour on it, later on.
yeah. They really were, and it became a big deal of I would say it became a huge deal as far as WWF at the time. Vince McMahon was just getting everything. So I do think if Hulk Hogan would have said the truth, it would have helped. I still think he's going to get some backlash because everybody was coming for him. It was kind of like this was the hot thing.
For
Wrestling
sure.
wasn't a publicly traded company yet. It was
Mhm.
still kind of a mom and pop. Even though it was a big multi-million-dollar thing, it was still like very mom and pop like. And I think a lot of people wanted to come for McMahon. Not saying that they didn't. Not some of them didn't have a good reason to, but I'm not going to say that all of them didn't have a good reason to. I think there was a lot of shady stuff going on, obviously in the history of pro wrestling, but in this time, a lot of weird, shady stuff. If you watch the McMahon docu series that Netflix did a couple years ago, a lot of things kind of come up that I'm like, I wasn't there. I don't want to put no accusations to him, but I have no problem saying it seems like the way people have responded, where there's smoke, there's fire.
I mean, look, no successful person in the history has gotten to where they are without doing something shady.
Yeah.
It might be now it's rare if it is somebody that's like clean cut, like no scandals, no, skeletons in the closet. Like it's rare. Like, I'm still like holding my breath, hoping nothing comes out about Barack Obama or something like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, please don't. But no successful person, like look at Martin Luther King, you know what I'm saying? Great man, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Leader, one of the leaders of the civil rights movement, but he had, his flaws too. You know what I'm saying? He was, sleeping around other women, you know what I'm saying, behind his wife's back and stuff. Doesn't take away from the impact he had and the vision he had, the dream he had, and that's the reason why we're here today. We're living in the free world, so we think. But yeah, man, it's like everybody has their flaws, and I feel like no one in the history that's been successful doesn't have flaws and stuff like that. You think about all the great people that come throughout history, like Napoleon, Alexander,
Yeah.
Caesar. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody has their flaws, So I feel like, yeah, man. So it's no way getting around that.
No, absolutely. And I've always felt that way too. Like, the higher up you see a person, it's what how many deals with the devil did they make along the way or once they got there. Like it's just the way of the world, the way of society, sadly. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying like it isn't purely good people that's successful too. Like I'm sure they have, but it's rare. I'm just saying it's rare because it's like because how does he keep winning? Like, what
Well,
is
what
going
I'll
on?
say is, everyone, there's what's your definition of success? Is what I would say is the key to that, because if you talk about those who are like on the Forbes 500 list, like they're billionaires and stuff like that, then I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that there's not, like you said, a one or a couple, but I look at a lot of them have, even if they worked hard to get it along the way, or once they got pretty high, they made some deals with the devil and did some shady things for
Yeah,
sure. But
yeah,
success can be different things. So that's why it depends on what you mean.
yeah. It's definitely different levels to it. Like, you can be working a regular 9 to 5 and be successful. Have a
Yeah.
family. Start your own business and stuff like that. It ain't
Success is
got that.
different for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, success would be, getting your degree. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
Getting your PhD or something like that. So yeah, it's all different levels to it. But like, for people that's like CEOs running these Fortune 500 companies and stuff like that, you had to step on a few necks. You probably had to grease a few palms you didn't want to, just to get ahead, to get to where you are. So it's unfortunate, but that's how things be going down.
Yeah, yeah. And before, all the steroid stuff, all the controversy we'd look at, I thought Bret Hart was really good in this docuseries.
Bret Hart had me cracking up.
It Yeah.
He couldn't wait for this opportunity because he had a lot to get off his chest. He could not wait.
Well, when I first saw him in like the first episode, there's two people that really surprised me: Bret Hart and Jesse Ventura. I was like, "Whoa, they're both. Why are they okay?" And so Bret's surprised because Bret has not spoken kindly of Hogan throughout the years, and I thought a big part of it, he kind of in the past made it sound like it was before WrestleMania 9, but definitely WrestleMania 9 was bad. And so I was kind of like, wow, in my mind, I'm like, Bret Hart, I'm watching the first two episodes. He might have turned the leaf here. Time heals all wounds, and he's okay. He's in this Hulk doc. You get to episode 3, Bret is still pissed off about it, still mad about it. And I'm not saying he's wrong. Hogan did him dirty, and the company Vince did him dirty. But I was like, he probably did agree to do this just to bury him in the docuseries.
Exactly. He could not wait. He could not wait. Like, if he's not talking about Bill Goldberg, he's gonna talk shit about Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, yeah, I
Excuse my
agree.
language, but yeah,
No, no, go. It's cool.
yeah.
It was fascinating to me to see that and to see him say those things. And I've heard him say something like this, and I've heard Hogan say, I don't remember. And that's something that's true, where he was like, I could see Hogan not remembering. I could see Hogan doing it. I could see Hogan just being in his own world. But Brett said he tried to shake his hand before WrestleMania 9, and Hogan just like looked at him and ignored it. And Hogan's like, I don't remember doing that. I don't know.
It,
It's
it,
tough.
I look at both sides. It's like, on one hand, it's like it did happen like over 30 years ago. So it's like, how you gonna remember what happened 30 years ago? You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. You will remember. It's like certain things. It's like if Brett can remember, he's like, I don't know if he's like older than Hogan or are they the same age.
He's younger than I think, a few years younger.
Okay, but it's like still, it's like, okay, you remember, that jet ski hitting you in the face supposedly, but you don't remember.
Supposedly.
You don't remember like Brett extending his hand to shake your hand and stuff like that. Like, come on now.
Yeah, or just and they're about 4 years apart,
Okay.
Brett and Hulk.
Mm,
So close in age though, and probably closer than I would have thought in
yeah.
age. But yeah, only about 4 years apart. I don't know what I would think. Hogan, what I don't like is, I know it's tough and it's business, and sometimes the boss says like you got to do it, and maybe you don't want to do it. Hulk wanted to be that's why he kept wrestling for so long, as we see, and not that we needed to see this to know that he loved the spotlight. Is what he did, is what he knows, is what he did best, is to get that crowd hype and give him a big ovation. But I don't like the whole, I don't know, Vince just, I didn't do it, they weren't selling tickets, it's not my fault, Vince told me just to do it. It's like there's a way to go about it, I think, that probably Brett still wouldn't like it, but I think as time went on, Brett would look at Vince more than Hogan if Hogan would have done it in a respectful way. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's why Brett was able to forgive, was more likely to forgive Shawn Michaels than Hogan. You know what I'm saying? Because Shawn, you can tell like of course, he was going through his stuff too, but you can tell he didn't want to like really do that. He was caught in a bad spot. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure over time, like they were able to like reconcile and men wounds and stuff like that. Brett, him and Vince, they passed things up too, but I'm sure there's still probably a little bit of resentment there too.
Yeah.
Because that's twice, you know what I'm saying? WrestleMania 9 and Survivor Series 97. That's twice Vince got Brett on that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. And the reason for WrestleMania 9 is because, like you said, they weren't selling tickets, and it was Vince and the promoters at Caesar Palace. They wanted Hogan. They requested Hogan, and at this time, Hogan was supposed to be retired, I guess, right? He was
Or
going to be gone.
yeah, retired or semi-retired, something like
Yeah,
that.
because this is like after the steroid stuff that came out. So you're bringing Hogan back, and also I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but it's kind of like a predecessor to what happened with the racist comments, where they brought him back and didn't really give an explanation. Like I know he went on like one of those news stations like NBC or something like that and talked about it, but he didn't go in front of the fans and apologize. You know what I'm saying? Like it didn't seem sincere when he did do the interview. Like it just seemed like it was just like something written down and it just didn't come off sincere. And kind of going back to this, kind of the steroid scandal, we mentioned like he went on Arsenio Hall and he lied about it, about not taking it, and he comes back and acts like nothing happened. You know what I'm saying? Like bro, you just accused of taking steroids like 6 months ago, and then you come back on Raw. You know what I'm saying you back and stuff like that. Like nothing ever happened. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like the racist comments. Like what will happen later on and stuff.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I think you're right. I don't know if Vince screwed Brett for the screw job. I know he did screw Brett at WrestleMania 9. So people,
Absolutely.
I think you're dead on. People always say Vince screwed Brett at Montreal screw job, Survivor Series. That's up in the air. It's not debatable what he did to him WrestleMania 9. That was a
Oh man.
huge screw job.
Yeah, in the whole scenario, how it's set up made no sense. So Brett, he's in the main event of WrestleMania against Yokozuna. Yoko beats Brett, dirty because Mr. Fuji threw, the
Salt.
salt. Yeah, the salt in Brett's eyes and stuff blinded him. Yoko goes over. Hulk Hogan comes out to save Brett, and Brett, he's saying like, "Hey, go fight my honor. Go get the belt for me. Do it for me, brother." Yeah. Even though Brett didn't want to do that. I'm sure it killed Brett to do that. You know what I'm saying? Hogan, he goes in there, and Mr. Fuji issues a challenge for his client, the dude he's managing, who just wrestled a match. Usually, the roles are reversed, where the challenger, Hogan, he would be challenging Yoko, but Mr. Fuji's issuing the challenge. You know what I'm saying? It just made no sense. Typically, like heel 101 is like, yeah, you'll get your match, but not tonight. You know what I'm saying? And they should have just dipped out, roll credits. You know what I'm saying? But no, Hogan, he had to be the star. He had to get his shine in one more time. And while you didn't see fans turn on Hulk Hogan like right here, like because they were hyped to see that, but looking back at it now, you do kind of have like a bad taste in your mouth when you know what happened behind the scenes and stuff. So I feel like this moment here was like really the last hurrah for Hogan and stuff like that. I said WrestleMania 6 was like the last great moment for Hogan because I feel like that was like really Hulkamania like in its purest form. Like that was like our last image of Hulkamania in its purest form. If he retired there, it would have been perfect. After the steroid scandal and stuff like that, and everything after that, him coming back, it just left a bad taste in your mouth when you know what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brett let it be known, in this docuseries, all about how the script writing was, the storytelling was so basic, and gave him a good old fu, in the movie. I was like, okay, all right, Brett. He's still, tell me how you really feel, Mister. So yeah, so Hogan does that, and then the big thing though is around this time after WrestleMania 9 and stuff, you know, Hogan gets caught up in what is the steroid trial. The government's coming after Vince. And, that trial is, 93, 94. Vince, is he going to go to jail? Who's going to take over? And apparently, I've heard this said, but that the government wanted Hulk. They were like, if you either testify against Vince, or we're going to implicate you.
Yeah,
And so it was set up that Hulk was a witness for the government. You know.
yeah. Yeah, they really were trying to get Vince. They were trying to take him down, but like before that, like or in the midst of that, like shortly after WrestleMania 9, Hogan, he thought business was gonna be as usual. You know what I'm saying? Like Hulk Hogan's gonna be running wild. He's gonna get another run, but Vince, he said, like, your run's done, brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're moving forward. It's the 90s now. We're going in a new direction. And him and Vince and Hogan had like a blow up behind the scenes. And, that led to Hogan having to put Yoko over at King of the Ring later on that year, that summer. And that'll be the last time we saw Hogan in WWE, at least for that time, at least for like, what, 9 years or something like that until he came back in '02. So they had a big blow up. And then, Hogan, he went off and did movies and TV, you know what I'm saying, like that. Yeah, next thing you know, he's in WCW, and then he's in the midst of trial and stuff, because
No, but I was looking like his that was really his last moment, WrestleMania 9,
yeah,
like in top, and then it goes downhill.
yeah,
And you're right, there was a falling out, but I was like to me my thing with the docuseries, the big thing was him being a star witness set up to be against Vince McMahon on this trial.
yeah, because they wanted him to testify, and he actually backed Vince on this. You know what I'm saying? Ironically, after they had that big blow up, and he said Vince had never sold him steroids. They asked him, "Did Vince McMahon sell you any steroids?" He said no. Maybe Vince implies like maybe you should take it, but he never sold him like anything. You know what I'm saying? He said he woke up one day, he had steroids in his mail or something like that, or in his locker, but, he didn't know who it was from, you know what I'm saying? So he was never technically sold anything, so, and he backed Vince and he saved Vince's life on that one. You know what I'm saying? Vince could have got, he could have went to jail, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
And then Vince made the comment, you know, trying to throw shade and stuff after Hogan just saved his ass, you know what I'm saying? And that, which opened up even more wounds and, but it is what it is. Hogan still backed him. So
That it's always fascinating to me. And I remember Conrad Thompson asked Bruce Pritchard this on something to wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. I never realized that the last like 2 months of the like June, and the verdict came out July of '94, but that what's going on in the country, OJ, that's June of '94 is when the tragic murders happened. June 17th, '94 is with the Bronco chase, and so OJ trial of the century is sweeping across the country. And I didn't realize that, but I'm glad Conrad asked. He's like, how much did the OJ trial happening kind of really, the media wasn't focused on you? And Bruce kind of was like, it was a big, yeah, it was a big deal. It was a huge help. And I'm like, man, that is true. I do think it's not as big of a deal now, like that first trial. Like it's a part of footnote in history. And also Vince came out on top. But I'm like, I just wonder how different it would be if the OJ situation didn't happen. If that's like the top story everyone's talking about, when like the verdict comes out and everything.
yeah, man, it definitely took a lot of heat off of them. You know what I'm saying? For the time being, it still was like pretty big, but not in the grand scope of like OJ, because that was like a big story.
Yeah, I think OJ kind of made it go from page one to like page 3 or 4. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, absolutely.
So I think, man, like that's timing. It's tragic. It's sad. People lost their lives, but I do wonder if what would happen because they can act like it, but it's been throughout. Like when you get the more attention, the more stuff goes on, and media speculates and all that. That affects trials. That affects jury. It does. I don't care what anyone says. You can try to sequester people all they want, but like they hear stuff and read stuff and see stuff. And I just wonder if, the outcome still would have been the same if the attention was still as hot as it was early on as, toward
I
the
think
end.
I think Hogan's testimony makes or breaks that whole thing. So regardless of OJ and that story taking over the attention or not, I think Hogan's testimony is like the make or break moment right there. So regardless of what's the top story, what's front page or not, I think his testimony makes or break that trial.
And I don't think Hogan lied.
Yeah. Not this time.
Not right, right, right. You're right. Not this time. You're right. I mean, I think Vince was smart and never sold, which is definitely like because it's all a lot of times people there's a moral thing and the legal, and like sometimes people think they're the same. It's like, nah, it's different. Like it's different.
It's not about what you say; it's how you say it. It's all about and technicalities and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think morally should feel bad. Not saying people make choices. So I'm not saying it's his fault, but that steroid stuff, like Vince, morally he should feel bad because they were trying to impress him, and
Mm-hmm.
he was doing it, and he cared about the bigger the body, how all that stuff. But legally, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, never, he definitely didn't sell anybody any steroids, and then he might have just implied like, well, I do whatever it takes to get big, and sometimes you got to find some, those wink wink, you got to find some ways, if guys are like, hey, well, I'm working out 7 days a week and blah blah blah, I can't get bigger. Well, there are other ways, I've heard, and then he doesn't say what it is, but we know what he's saying.
Yeah, and
Like, I think he did that.
Vince's motto. He's like, I wouldn't tell you to do something I wouldn't do.
I found ways to get bigger, but I'm not going to tell you. Which is like, legally, he's saving himself, but morally, I always think like, yeah,
Mm,
you got some blood on your hands. Not saying it's all your fault because people make choices,
yeah,
but I look
and
at it different.
and wouldn't you know, like the more things change, they stay the same because unfortunately, we had kind of like a repeat of this, like where they were back in the spotlight for a steroid scandal in '07, and
hmm
then the Crispin Wall thing happens, which kind of similar to the OJ trial and stuff like that. So it's unfortunate that that sort of thing kind of happened again. You know what I'm saying? Like years later.
Yeah, well, 'cause I mean, I don't think it stopped. Which I think seven, it stopped. I think
Yeah,
after Benoit, you can look at how the wrestlers look, and they look like a lot of them look like, okay, like people who are just in good shape, not like superheroes. You know what I'm saying? I think John Cena was one of the few that was like close to that, like after '07, that was like, oh, he looks like he could be on roids. And I'm not saying he was on roids, but he's the only one who had a look like maybe he's on it. That changed. Where you look at this trial '94, that look was still going on throughout the rest of the decade into the
yeah.
2000s.
Yeah, I think they got when Vince got off. I don't think he took it seriously because I'm not sure how serious they took their drug testing policy back then. But you can tell like they was happy just to be free and stuff like that. They didn't take it seriously. I think '07 because again there's more of an internet presence now, social media.
Yeah.
Even though social media, Facebook and stuff wasn't like a big thing, but it was
But
around.
Facebook was bigger in '07.
Yeah, it was around. It
It
didn't get
started taking up pretty big in '07.
okay, okay. I wasn't on Facebook in '07. I got on like a little bit later, but it was around though. It was around. Um, and media and all internet was bigger at this time too. So a lot more eyes on it. Not in the good way. You know what I'm saying? So I
And
think it
there
made them buckle down on it.
Yeah, yeah. To your point, like actually social media, internet, 24-hour news, and also they were a publicly traded company at this point
Yeah,
compared to the first, the 93, 94, they weren't. And that makes a big difference. Now there's a board of trustees, and they don't have a vote of confidence in you, and they can vote you to be removed and stuff like that. So then he had people to answer to, and there were certain standards you had to have that you didn't have to have in those early to mid '90s. So yeah, just interesting. And I guess I don't know if the courage is the right word you want to use, or guts, because they were trying to implicate Hogan apparently in saying like, if you testify, like if not, we'll look at you. And Hogan could have gone that way with Vince, but he didn't. He told the truth, or his what he believes the truth. I don't know. But do you think that took some guts, or do you think it just was whatever?
it goes back to what we said on the last episode, like him just betting on himself and just trusting his gut. So it's like I know he's Hulk Hogan. He is or was, a lot of things, but the one thing I give him credit for is like he believed in himself and he trusted his gut. And this is one of those cases, just like with the Rocky 3 situation where Vince McMahon Sr. fired him for doing the movie. And, fortunately for him, it still worked out. You know what I'm saying? And he went on to still become a success. And this is one of those cases where, hey, things just worked out. You know what I'm saying? Just he told the truth. Because he learned his lesson from the Arsenio Hall interview, where he's like, just tell the truth. You know what I'm saying? Just go ahead and just let it out. I think he learned he learned a lesson from that Arsenio Hall segment and stuff.
Yeah, good point. I think so. At least for that moment, he learned his
Yeah,
lesson.
yeah. The nose didn't grow on that.
I agree. I agree with you. You're right. You're right. It did not. It did not. And so, he gets through that and he's kind of in the wilderness here. WWF has moved on. They kind of have to in a lot of ways. And he's doing Thunder in Paradise, which I used to watch that show back in the
Really?
day, too. Yeah, I did watch Thunder in Paradise. Looking back, I wonder why. I mean, I know why. I was a kid and stuff, and it was even though Hogan was at it was like, oh, Hulk Hogan, this is my wrestling and TV like combined, like prime time or whatever, scripted TV was combined in my own weird way, but not a good show. Not a good show. I've watched it later, like years later. I'm like, oh, this show stinks. It's not
It's
even
like
as good. It makes Baywatch look like The Godfather.
it's like I'm sure you watched Power Rangers and stuff as a kid back
Yeah,
then
of
too.
course.
So like back then, even Power Rangers, it looked cheesy and cheap and stuff with the effects. But the thing is, like, it has that nostalgia and stuff like that. So that's why Power Rangers still holds up today. Where Thunder in Paradise is like it just looks cheesy.
Yeah.
It's just bad,
But I say all that because they're filming on the lot, and right next door, same lot as WCW, which they were in a real dark time, losing a lot of money. The product looked bad. It was real cheesy. Eric Bischoff is now the top, executive for WCW, executive producer, and strikes up a friendship and a relationship with Hulk. And Ric Flair, it's not in the document, but Ric Flair was also a big part of those talks too to get Hulk to come over. Woo! Ric Flair was the Nature Boy was a big part of those talks, and Hulk and Bischoff later on have admitted that, and Rick said it. But I wish I could go back. I don't remember that. I was watching wrestling, but I don't remember this. But like to get Hulk Hogan to sign a WCW, even though his name had been kind of going through the muck, that was a big, huge deal for WCW and a big shakeup to the wrestling business.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Definitely a big deal. Regardless of how big or how popular he was at the time. Still it's Hulk Hogan, regardless. You know what I'm saying? Like think about like in '06 when Kurt Angle he went to TNA, like how big that was at the time. Obviously him going to TNA, it didn't make the splash that Hulk Hogan did when he went to WCW, but it was still a big deal. You know what I'm saying? Or like John Moxley going to AEW and stuff. Like think of how much buzz that created and stuff for a little bit during that time. So yeah, or Cody Rhodes coming back to WWE. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all a big deal, but nothing really compared to like Hogan, because Hogan, he was the biggest star in wrestling at that time, the most recognizable person on the planet at that time. You know what I'm saying? So that was a big deal, regardless how you feel about it.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And it starts off. They have a nice, intro that match with Ric Flair, but once again, Hogan's hearing the boos, and people are tired of the red and yellow. They're tired of say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and like we said in our last episode, what we've been talking about, the world of the anti-hero is really prevalent in the 90s, and a lot of wrestling, minus like ECW, a lot of in America at least, a lot of wrestling is surprisingly behind the times.
Yeah.
When it comes to what is really connecting with an audience.
Yeah, man. I like that you mentioned ECW, of course, being a staple of Philly, you know what I'm saying? So we can say Philly, y'all was ahead of the curve on that one, you know what I'm
Like
saying?
we always are, man. We don't get no respect. We don't get no respect, but if you know, you know. You want to give props to New York or your LAs and the West Coast, but the heart, what a real American city is Philadelphia. Dirty,
Yes.
grimy, hardworking, but pretty. But you have to look at it a little bit harder to see it. But it's beautiful if you have that right eye for it. Not all the glitz and glamour like you like in DC and stuff like that. We don't have that stuff.
Once you get past the monuments, you can go across that bridge to Anacostia. It's a whole different world in
I
DC.
know.
That's the real DC.
Yes.
The side that they haven't gentrified yet. That's what's left of Chocolate City.
Yep. And that, who knows how long that has.
Yeah, they moving over there too. You know what I'm saying? They definitely starting construction over there too. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, man. Also, I wanted to go back to like that parade when he first signed WCW. Like, I didn't pay attention to this at first, but they said like the parade, like they used extras, like it was a stage, like, and of course, Cody Rhodes on the thing. So of course, hey, that showed you, Deremy, that he's a big deal. They got Cody on there, so
Does it?
you don't see your tribal chief on there. You don't see
Natty was. I love Natty, but
well,
Natty was on there.
because of connection with Brett. I feel like
Well,
they
and her dad. I think that's
yeah,
also
and
the
her dad,
thing.
yeah, and her dad. I think
Cody gets
because
that. Yeah.
yeah, and because of Dusty and stuff. But also, I mean, Hogan, he has connection with Yokozuna and stuff like that too. You would think Roman would have popped up on there or something like that.
Doesn't have. I mean, why? You got so many other people. Though they had clips of The Rock. I think Cody. Yes, he's the champ. That plays a part for sure. But if Cody was the champ and not the son of Dusty Rhodes, would he be in this? No. Just like I said, why? If you go by your logic, then you would have had Rhea Ripley talking about it or something, or you could have had Trish Stratus talking about it. Like Natty, who's a legend and one of my favorite just people in wrestling. Forget gender, just I love Natty Neidhart. She talks about it because her dad and uncle were a big part of 80s wrestling. She was able to, and actually, I said uncles, plural, like, because Davy Boy was in it, Owen was coming in it, like, so she was able to see, like, the Hogan, the dad side at like a birthday party for Brooke or something like that, or she was able to see behind the scenes and the human side. So I think that's what Cody has too, is that rapport, especially Cody. I think by his age, when Hogan goes back to WCW, or not back to, but joins WCW, Dusty's like part of like behind the scenes team. I know he was a broadcaster, but I think he was doing some other stuff too.
Yeah, Dusty was a promoter for a little bit for WCW before Bischoff took
Yeah,
over.
he was like a booker and stuff. Yeah.
But I bring up Cody because he said like because he must have been there or he must have been watching. He said like it looks staged, and looking back at it, it does look kind of staged, like the whole parade and
It
stuff like
was
that.
staged. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I thought it was interesting. I was like, it's crazy. I never picked up on that until like just watching the documentary and stuff like that.
I
But
don't mind it though. I don't care. Does that bother you that it was staged?
um, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about it because it's like because there wasn't any social media, so it's like I mean the steroid trial it come and gone and stuff and all that stuff. So it's like out of sight, out of mind, like I said. But I am kind of surprised because it's like, well, I mean, you can kind of believe that people will be behind that and happy to see them and gleefully and all that, but at the same time, it's like I don't know, it just looked a little too cookie cutter, a little too, you know,
It wouldn't fly now
yeah,
for sure. Like but I give them credit because for what they needed was to appear big time.
yeah. I get why, I
Yeah,
get
that's
why.
why it looks big, even though it's staged. It looks like a big deal, and because they're right, and I remember those times where even though WWF was struggling, I didn't as a kid didn't know that they were. I'm not reading the ratings and stuff like that when I'm 5 and 6 years old. I don't care about that, but I still knew at that point WCW there was no competition. Like which one was bigger, which one just looked like the profession, like the major leagues, and didn't. Like I was watching both of them, and WCW did not look the same at all. And you knew which one was the big dog. And Eric Bischoff, to his credit, knew to compete, we have to look like we're on this level. Like we have to. So I get it.
Absolutely,
I get
yeah,
it.
absolutely. It's just that illusion of pro wrestling and stuff like that, So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. They had to
yeah,
evolve it. And I don't know, man. I just look at so many things that can be an argument that why Hogan's like the GOAT. Now, not the best worker, but just to me the greatest of all time, like as far as like impact and what he did for the business and stuff. If you have the 80s run, that could be an argument in itself, but it's what I'm about to say here, and you know it is, you know, picking up that the crowd's still not with me. They're booing me, and being the third man July of 96 at Bash at the Beach and dropping that leg and just reveling and being a heel. That's another all-time run that he just had, like in WCW. And that was the start of it. And that it unbelievable.
oh, so we're talking about it now.
Yeah, yeah. Now we're here.
Oh man, the moment, you know what I'm saying? The moment that you could say arguably may have changed the business forever,
Yeah.
and it's crazy because it's like we're coming up on 30 years since that moment too. Like it's crazy, man. 30 years later, just this July, um, like man, it's like, and that I think that hits so much harder, I think, than John Cena's heel turn because that was a surprise too. Cena, we saw the seeds planted, like you could see that coming a little bit. Hogan, we had no idea because he wasn't really involved in the storyline leading up to it. So that's what made it hit harder. And then him coming out, and then also about you hear Bobby Heenan on commentary. He's like, "What side is he on?" That was like maybe the slight giveaway that maybe something
Hmm.
might happen. Like, whose side is he on? Is he on WCW side or is he with the outsiders?
I wish. Well, it still didn't. I'm not going to say young me was influenced by that, but looking back, I wish he didn't say that.
Hmm.
I mean, I think that maybe for I don't know, some people can't believe it because now it's like we know what he did, so
Yeah.
they'll be like, "Oh yeah, when I knew he was with NWO or I mean with Hall and Nash," but I think most people still didn't. But I do watch that clip and I'm with you. Like, why did Bobby Heenan? I wish he wouldn't have said that. Like, that's kind of foreshadowing something.
Yeah, I mean it's a nice little nugget, but yeah, I wish he would have just kept that to himself and just stayed quiet, or just said something else. But yeah, like it's still doesn't take away from the moment at all.
No, no, it doesn't.
And the fact that you had people throwing trash in the ring because you don't see that anymore. You don't see people throwing trash in the ring no more. Uh,
People
and
try to
then
get into the ring.
yeah, they showed the one guy jump the rail and like Kevin Nash was like legit beating his ass.
Oh yeah, they were beating him. Yeah,
Yeah,
Scott
because
Hall
like
stomping on him and stuff.
yeah, that's a big no no. You don't cross that rail. You know what I'm saying? Unless you want to get these hands for real and stuff like that. And then like they were throwing trash at Mean Gene, like actually got cut on his nose. I didn't even peep that. I was
I
like, how did he
forgot
get cut?
that.
I'm like, how did he get cut? Like I guess one of the trash or the Febreze must have
Yeah,
cut him
or
on the
a
face or
bottle
something.
like some. Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah.
And when Hogan said that, I'm like, oh yeah. And then they showed it, and I'm like, that's right. I do remember that. It had been a while since I had seen that part, but
Yeah.
I do remember that. Like he was cut on the nose, but that was just huge.
And that's when Hogan knew they had heat. They had light in the bottle right there. And then he's like, hey, let's just go off. Let's run with this.
And run with it, they did. I mean,
Man.
it was huge.
Yeah, and I talked about his run in the '80s and how big that was. You could say his run in the '90s. Like it's crazy. He had two peak eras, both on different sides of the coin. One as a face and as a heel.
Hmm.
And I don't know. You can kind of argue that maybe his heel run with the NWO might be bigger than the '80s. I don't know. Like, which run do you think was bigger as far as impact? Like the red and yellow babyface
I think
Hulkamania,
red and yellow is bigger
okay,
because
yeah.
that starts it all.
But the NWO black and white just hit different though.
It did. It did. It did. It's two different areas. But the reason why I'll say it's bigger in the
Mhm.
'80s is because that was it. It was Hogan in WWF, where the Attitude Era was NWO, but then you also had Austin and The Rock rising up. You had Goldberg. You had so NWO is a big chunk of it. I'm not taking and Hogan doing what he did, but he kind of shares that. Like Austin's a big chunk of it. The Rock is a big chunk of it too. Where in the '80s, the only other chunk he's really sharing that with is Vince McMahon,
Mhm.
in my opinion. And there's other great, Piper, other great wrestlers, but the guys to make that boom, that was Vince and Hogan. So that's why I call the '80s bigger.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause it did seem like in the '80s everything was like built around just him, you
Right,
know.
right.
But the '90s, the NWO, like he was like sharing the pot with everybody else, and not just people like in WCW, but people in rival companies too. Like they had their moments as well. So he's kind of like sharing the spotlight with everybody,
Yeah,
across
it's
the
not
board.
just solely him.
Yeah.
But if you talk about the '80s golden era, what's the first thing you're talking about? You're talking about Hulk Hogan. The '90s, some people will mention Austin 316 first. They mention other DX gets thrown, like different things get thrown in. I think NWO is top, honestly. Like they're right there at the top of like why the Attitude Era became the era. But yeah, it's a good question because I think numbers wise, you can make a case the '90s were bigger than the '80s, but I think there's other factors in that too.
Yeah.
you know. But I look at like, yeah, the red and yellow is. I think that's also what you think about. If I say Hogan to you, even though you didn't watch the '80s, you watched the NWO one. I think red and yellow still is the first thing I think about, even
Mm.
though I got a little bit of red and yellow, but mostly like the I got all of NWO.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I still would go to red and yellow first.
Yeah, red yellow's definitely like iconic. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Definitely like Superman. Like he has the blue and the red, a little bit of the yellow and stuff. Like that's his iconic. Even though he has other suits too, like that black suit, which is pretty cool too. But that red and blue suit, the red cape and everything, that's iconic. That's his look right there. Or Iron Man with the red and the gold and stuff like that. That's his signature look.
yeah, yeah. And it kind of just showed in the doc that what it was getting at was he was back on top, but his personal life was like struggling. That ego, like you said in our last video, the ego's really starting to rise and get bigger and bigger in this time.
Yeah, and you can kind of see like the lines kind of like blurring a little bit. Like his he took like his work home with him. Like you could kind of see like he was like he really lived that character. You know what I'm saying? They've mentioned like how certain wrestlers they're a mark, for their own character, and for people that don't know they're watching this, they're new. If you happen to be new to wrestling, like mark means like a super fan, like you're just invested. You know what I'm saying? Like you're a fan, or smart mark meaning you're a smart fan, like you pick up on the business and everything like that. For people that don't know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I always do think that is tough in wrestling and acting. You've heard stories of plenty of actors and actresses who it's hard to they're playing a character and the lines get blurred really bad. I do think that's tough to kind of have to balance,
Yeah,
which I think people think it's easy, but I think one thing I will say this docuseries did a good job of. I think any of us, if you don't prepare for it and don't have the right people around you, that character that everyone sees you as just becomes you. No one knows Terry. They don't know that's your real name. They just know Hulk. You feel like you got to be that person. You got to keep them going and stuff like that. Keep the attention going, and that can be a really tough thing. It's hard to realize it, and I've never gone through it, but I think it's hard for people to have maybe understanding or empathy for that. But I do think that is very tough when you are just one character, and that is who we expect you to be whenever we see you, whenever you're out in public, at the gym, at the store, at a restaurant, at the school, picking up the kids. You got to be that guy.
yeah, man. Linda, his wife or his first wife, she brought it up saying like he was a little bit more distant when he would be at home. He wouldn't be like as talkative and everything like that. But he was on TV, he's Hulk Hogan, or he's Hollywood Hogan at the time. He's this character larger than life. But when he's home, he's like a little bit more like quiet and reserved, which is like basically the polar opposite of who he is on TV and stuff. And I don't know, maybe he was just exhausted or something like that, or just checked out. I'm not sure what he was going through, but you could definitely see like he was just going through the motions and stuff like that. Because I'm sure that life is hard. Because you got to be on all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like you're in the
yeah.
spotlight all the time and stuff. You just want to be home and you want to just be chilling and stuff like that. But I think from her perspective, she just felt like he wasn't like present in the moment. Like he
Hmm.
wasn't like emotionally available. I feel like from her perspective, at least.
Yeah, you're right, and you're absolutely right to say it like that. It's always everyone has perspective, so that's her perspective, and we as the audience, we weren't there, so we really don't know it. But it's just I get it's hard on both sides. I totally get it with her because it's like, yeah, I get your even if like, hey, I get it. I get your job. It can be a lot when you have years and years and years of in WWF at the times days, you're gone 300 days a year. Now, we both know there's 365 in a year. So the overwhelming majority of the time you are by yourself or you're by yourself with these young kids and you may know it, but it still gets lonely and frustrating and hard, right? And you do that for years and years, it can take a toll on you. Where then, okay, I want you to fall in line or be here, be all in once you're home. But then I think on the flip side, it's hard in my opinion because I think in WCW he went, they were older and that was part of the deal, like smaller, not as many work dates. But still, what do you think? They probably went to 180 to 200 work days. So that's less than 300, but you're still going half to majority of the time of the year. And I think it's hard because guess what? People, places think they move on or they build their systems around you. And I've heard people say that who had jobs where they were gone all the time and then they retire or they stop those jobs. And it's like their wife and kids, you have a system already in place of like, all right, make the lunches, get them up by this time, get them ready, school bus or drop them off. And then that person who just was on the road all the time comes home and they want to help. They actually do want to help, but they're fumbling. They don't know the system because they're not there, so they're in the way. And then the people are like, "Ah, you're in the way." But the same people who wished you were home more are getting frustrated at you because you're in the way. If that makes sense, like it's a double edged sword. You know, it's
Right.
tough.
Right.
So I think that's where it can kind of be like, even though the road is not home, but the road becomes home because you
Hmm.
just get so used to that and you're used to, and it makes sense your mind is running all the time because you're going from match to match, place to place, bus to bus, rental car to rental car. So it kind of fits, right? Like your mind's going to be on the run, but then when you're just home, it's very hard to turn that off. And I think that's I know it's not impossible, and I know some people have found ways to manage it, but that's got to be just really tough if you're in any, you feel bad for the kids, but definitely in a married, relationship, like that's really hard to deal with.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So it's just like, just from her perspective, that's what it seemed like. You see him on TV, like he's partying with Dennis Rodman. He's hanging with Dennis Rodman and stuff, smoking a cigar. He's turned up and stuff. But just to see him, like, when they show the shots of him at home, those home videos, he's like kind of like depressed a little bit. You kind of feel bad for him a little bit because it's like you kind of know, because the business and stuff, the toll it takes on you. So, you kind of understand. But yeah, it's kind of sad a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you get to see the fall of WCW. They had a great rise, but you see the fall, and you get it from like the finger poke of doom and all that stuff. They show that, and then I'm surprised, I don't know if you are, that he brought up Vince Russo, like, and he pretty much finger points Vince Russo as like the fall of WCW and blames him.
I mean, I think they were definitely stumbling before Vince Russo got there for sure. I think Vince Russo, he might have made it worse. He didn't make it better for sure, but they were definitely falling before that. Um, you know, like the finger poke of doom, that was pretty much nail in the coffin then. Like it was no turning back after that. And I think that's on WCW. That's on them for giving Hogan creative control because it's like Kevin Nash said it too. He was like, "Hey, look, I don't want the responsibility." Even though Kevin Nash himself at one point had creative control,
Hmm.
but he didn't want the responsibility. He's like, "Look, it's our job just to make sure your vision comes to fruition and make it look good as possible." Like, you know, like I said earlier on the last episode, no one man should have all that power. And like I said, when Hogan, you know, what was his greatest success, him betting on himself, what made him successful, also became his detriment because you saw that, him having creative control because he was a big success, he was so over, but he may not have the best vision for like creativity as far as like what to put on the show and stuff like that. He was like, well, we already got their money, brother. Let's go ahead and do it. Boop, finger poke of doom. And like you can see the crowd was pissed,
But yeah, yeah, yeah,
and not that you just sold out the Georgia Dome, which like it's like 40,000, 50,000 people in attendance, your biggest attendance ever for a Nitro. This should have been a pay-per-view. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why you got the Georgia Dome for a Nitro? This could have been Bash at the Beach or something like that.
Right,
you
right,
know,
absolutely.
and and then you pull that crap. You know what I'm saying? Like it makes no sense. So yeah.
No, no, that yeah. And don't get me wrong, I brought that up because that's what's in the docu series is that the Vince Russo gets called out for it, but I don't know. I don't know if that's fair to single him out. Like I kind of thought if you wanted to include him, but to say it the way you said it, like it was falling short before, mention the time, Warner, like that merger. And then if you threw in Vince Russo, I'd be like, okay, because Vince Russo definitely was not the cause of the fall of WCW, but he expedited it. Like he did a lot of just dumb, crazy stuff that was like, whoa.
Yeah. the Viagra on the pole match,
Yeah, yeah,
Buff Bagwell's mom
yeah.
on the pole,
Judy Bagwell, David Arquette winning.
or the WCW title changing hands like 16 times in 6 months.
It was bad. It was so, but it shows where we mentioned Brett still has some feelings.
Yeah.
Hulk has feelings toward some people too. Comes out and he has feelings towards Vince Russo that I don't think ever went away till his last day.
Yeah, man, and they show a little bit of that shoot promo too from that night at Bash the Beach in 2000. Hulk he wins the title from Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett lays down, does the job, like, just lays down. He literally just lays down. Hogan pins him. He cuts like a brief little shoot promo saying like that's why his company's going down the toilet now because of crap like this. He literally walks out of the company, like he throws the belt down and Gorilla, and he leaves. And Vince Russo comes out, talks his stuff, and that's how Booker T ended up winning his first world title, his first of 5 WCW world titles and stuff. I think if that moment didn't happen, like would Booker T be where he's at? Would he
Yeah,
win the world title? You know what I'm saying? So you got to think about stuff like that too.
yeah. He would have been where he's at. That hurts him. That doesn't help him.
You think that hurts Booker T more than helps?
Yes, yes, yes. I think Harlem Heat helps his tag team run and his athletic ability there, and then I think his eagerness to play ball when he went to WWE and then the success helps him. I don't think nobody was looking at that run once Vince Russo and they were a joke. I don't think no WWE people were like, we see Booker's potential. Look at when he got the belt after Hogan dropped it. It's like, no, that was such a crappy just shit show.
Look at it as he got an opportunity and capitalized on it, but I do agree, like being associated with that, it does leave like a black mark, and it kind of
Yeah,
takes away from his moment. You know what I'm saying? Which he wasn't originally in the plans for that, but he got an opportunity. It's just it's kind of messy because it's like he's involved in like a messy type of segment. Even though it was big for him for his career, and afterwards he did great things after that, but it's just like it does like it leaves like a little stain on his legacy a little bit, just being associated with that.
right. Absolutely. What I want to get to next though is what I thought was really cool, and maybe I should have expected it. I don't know if you did, but the amount of attention and weight that they put on WrestleMania 18, Hogan versus The Rock, and I find that I love that. I know you love that match too. You were talking about you and your dad being a Hogan fan. The Rock, we know, is your favorite wrestler. So it's like that was a icon versus icon, generation versus generation type of match, and it exceeded expectations. And I've loved that since '02. It keeps growing in lore. You know what I mean? Like it keeps where now I am starting to hear more people call that the greatest WrestleMania match of all time.
Cody Rhodes said it himself. He said
Yeah.
that's the greatest. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with that. You know what
Well,
I'm saying?
okay. 'Cause I was going to ask you for both Hogan and The Rock. Is that their finest hour of their entire careers?
I mean, you got Hogan and Andre. You got Hogan and Warrior. Even like the first main event with Mr. T involved and stuff too. And Hogan Savage, the Mega Powers exploding too. Even I'll even throw Hogan and Sergeant Slaughter because that was like big too at the time. And then you got Rock and Austin. Their battles at WrestleMania, Rock and Cena. So many battles, so many iconic classic feuds they had at WrestleMania, where it's like, okay, you could maybe say they're bigger, maybe they had a better build up or something like that. But the match itself, this match, because we never seen anything like this. We never seen like two eras like collide. Like we had some dream matches come about, but never like two different eras. You know, this is like this is like the '80s and the '90s kind of colliding right here. You know what I'm saying? The
Hmm.
biggest star of the '80s, the biggest star of the '90s of the Attitude Era. We never thought we'd see it. A lot of people ironically thought Stone Cold should be where The Rock was at, but Austin, he had took some time off, because of a neck injury, and The Rock had kind of eclipsed him a little bit. So The Rock,
Yeah.
he kind of took that spot, just on GP, and knowing that Austin 2 months later he would check out of the company for a little bit, you know, it's kind of easy to see why The Rock got that spot. You know what I'm saying? Because The Rock, he was a little bit more professional. So I can understand why The Rock was in that spot. And looking back at it now, like it just has a mythology around it. You know what I'm saying? Like the match itself was epic. the moment when The Rock came out and challenged him. Like I remember watching that live when it happened, like The Rock coming out and them two coming face to face. Like I'm a little kid, so it's like I didn't really know too much about Hogan at the time. I knew he was like big and all that, but I just knew like it was a moment. I just knew it was a moment in time and we're watching something special, you know. And I remember my dad telling me about this. He's like, "Oh man, like what Hogan back?" He's like, "Yeah, he's about to fight The Rock." He's like, "Oh man, like I gotta see this." And then I remember hearing it was on the news. They talking about on the news the next day. Like that's how big this was. Like the fact that it was
Yeah.
being reported on like national news and stuff. That's how big this match was for the time. So yeah, man, it's always gonna be a moment in time. It's gonna hold a special place in my heart. Just for that reason and stuff. I do feel
I
yeah.
no, go ahead, go ahead. I
No,
know.
I do feel like going back to what Cody said about this being the greatest WrestleMania match of all. I mean, like I said, it's hard to argue with that. It's just I can't overlook their two individual feuds they had separately with other people too. Like those are also big. Like Hogan and Andre is big. You could say it's probably the most important WrestleMania match. Is it the greatest?
Not at all.
I put Rock and I would prefer Rock and Hogan over that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Um,
think importance
yes,
um for Hogan, I would say WrestleMania 3 is more important than that one. If you want to, WrestleMania 1 wasn't an individual matchup, but WrestleMania 1, you can, if you want to make an argument there, those are the only two I would take over WrestleMania 18 as far as importance. As far as Hogan's finest hour in the ring, I think without a doubt. And I think for The Rock as well. I don't think The Rock has had a better, I don't think any of the Austin matches were as good as that match with Hogan. And I can't think of any other, not his Cena matches, nothing in WrestleMania that was better. I think that's both of their finest hours was in that ring that
yeah, like
night.
yeah. The only match with Austin I think comes close is the match at WrestleMania 19. I think that might come close, just from like the storytelling perspective. I mean, WrestleMania 17 was kind of close if they didn't botch the ending with Austin turning and all that stuff. Yeah, him and Hogan's match, I think for them that's like their best match. I think for WrestleMania stuff.
Yeah,
I feel like
I think 19 doesn't. It holds more weight because we know that was the end for Stone Cold, which I don't. I didn't fully know that. I don't know if you did. I didn't
nah,
know
nah, I
that
didn't
back
either.
then.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't either.
So it doesn't have. It's like more on the like. Oh, now that we know, because it does that for me. Now that I know that was Stone Cold's final match, it holds a greater weight, than before. It was just The Rock finally got Stone Cold. That's what mattered to me as a Rock fan. And I love Stone Cold too, but I was a Rock fan like you.
Yep,
But I just think I was surprised in a good way how much attention this match got in the docuseries, which I think shows what the people think, but I think honestly what Hulk Hogan thought of how important this match was for his career.
absolutely, man. You could say this might have been an essential match for Hulk Hogan.
I think it's his number two essential behind Andre.
Absolutely, absolutely. Definitely one of the biggest matches of all time, and like Cody said, definitely one of the greatest, if not the greatest, WrestleMania match of all time. Just because the impact alone, two generations coming together, and then also like when you're watching the match in the moment, like you see the crowd shift because Hogan, he's the heel, Rock is the babyface, he's the good guy, but something happened to where this is a testament to how good and how talented both these guys are at improv
Hmm.
and switching up on the fly. Because when the crowd they start cheering for Hogan and they're booing Rock, they kind like the two of them in the moment they kind of shifted too. Like Hogan, he was working more like a babyface. Rock was working more like a heel. You know,
And if you watch the beginning of the match, like to your point, Hogan was acting like a heel and Rock was acting like a babyface. So
yeah.
like you're right, it's just incredible.
And you can see it like in the stare down, like when they're both like looking back and forth, like they're looking to the side, they're kind of reading the audience and stuff. It's like you could tell in that moment they knew it was like, okay, we gotta switch things up here. Like crowd's a little rowdy
Who do you
tonight
think who started was that were they the ones who started that?
with the whole like stare down, looking back and forth.
Like when you're like they're in the middle and then they'll one will look at one side of the audience like and the other one looks at the other one and then they share their heads to like look and to me it's like oh wow like they're getting like the scope like this is a big deal.
I think
Like were they the
if
first
you're
ones to do that?
if you're talking about just like soaking the moment in and looking around, yes, but they we've had other stare downs and stuff before a match too.
No, that wasn't a stare down in my opinion.
Well, not like a traditional stare down where they're just like face to face the whole time, but like as far as like what you're talking about, like in the moment, like looking around, soaking up the. Yes, they're probably the first, because
Because
we've seen Rock and Cena
uh,
recreate that too.
yeah, I was gonna say Rock and Cena did that. Like, yeah, a few people have done it since, but I didn't know if they were the first.
Yeah, even like Sasha Banks and Bianca, they did kind of like something similar
Mm-hmm.
too, where
Mm-hmm.
they weren't like directly face to face, but they were like looking at each other and they were kind of like getting emotional. Like you see Bianca like crying because like they're making history. The first two black women in the main event WrestleMania. Like it wasn't like the same, but similar a little bit.
I don't know how people feel. People feel that's corny. I love when I like Bianca and Sasha kind of it was different because she got really like too emotional, but I get it. Like you said, it was history. But like when Hogan and The Rock did it, even when Rock and Cena did it, but Hogan and The Rock were the best because it was like they both understand like this is a big like this is a big deal. Like this
Yeah,
is like even for them, they had already headline wrestle. They had been a part of big deals, but they were like, "This is epic." I love that match, man.
yeah, and for The Rock to say like at that point he had pretty much accomplished everything he pretty much wanted to do in wrestling, but for him to say like this match right here was just like the extra cherry on top, like that says a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like it just gave him like a little extra something to do, another notch under his belt. And the fact that Hogan put Rock over, which that's how it should have gone, because he's the old lion, Rock was the younger lion. It made sense. And we know Hogan, he's notorious for like being selective on who he wants to put over and stuff. And wouldn't you know, ironically, they're back at the Sky Dome in Toronto where he put over the Ultimate Warrior, and things didn't work out. But this time they got it right. They're back at the Sky Dome. Hogan puts over the younger guy, and it's the right guy for the job. It's The Rock, you know what I'm saying, who ends up becoming, or he already was like a big deal, but he ends up becoming an even bigger star after this. You know what I'm saying? So they pretty much did like a do over at the Sky Dome and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know who else? Nice segue. The company had a do over and got it right. Because remember, for the first time when Hogan fights Warrior, they're ready to move past him, even
Mm-hmm.
though you could see with that one, Hogan steals the show the way he performs and gives Warrior the belt. And it's like, ooh, are you sure you should make this move? The crowd still loves that guy, Hulk Hogan. But they went with the move. They learned and they saw how the crowd reacted to Hogan. Even though he lost the match, he's the winner, really. And you're right, The Rock grew even more too. But the winner of the public opinion and who you thought about leaving, watching that match and leaving that night, and the next night on Raw, it was Hulk Hogan. And you heard Hogan say, Vince said, "You got to bring the red and yellow back." So Vince learned when he's like, "Okay." I bet you the crowd was typical and just the Raw. Bet you Vince. I'm not saying he would have kicked Hulk like out or fired him. Do I think he takes a back seat? I think he would have if like the crowd if he didn't see what he saw that night.
Okay, let me ask you this, because knowing we know, like, okay, the build up, the match, it was epic. It's part of history. It's an iconic moment in wrestling. We can't take that away. But do you think this would have worked if Hogan had came back with the traditional red and yellow instead of coming back with the NWO? Do you think this would have worked?
No, no, I don't think
Okay.
so. Not in the same way. I'm not saying no one would have cared. Like I think you still would have gotten Hogan and The Rock. You would have got excitement, but then it would have been like, but The Rock has to be a heel, and then like, or it's a babyface versus babyface. I don't think so, and I think also riding the way WCW had been slipping the last couple years before Vince bought them. You could play on that. Everyone knew like there was some bad blood with Hogan going down south.
Yeah.
So like that's what you could play on. So I don't think it works as well
Yeah.
if it comes back in the red and yellow.
Yeah, because I mean, I see what they were trying to do with the NWO. They're trying to like rehash it, but I think the reason why that also failed is, one, is WWE doing it. You know what I'm saying? And we've seen, history has shown WWE, they try to like rehash things that they didn't create, whether it's the NWO or ECW. You know what I'm saying? We've seen it doesn't really work out because it's not organic. You know what I'm saying? It's not the
Right.
original. It's not the original people involved from behind the scenes that made it what it was and stuff like that. Like when they brought ECW back, Paul Heyman was there, but he wasn't like the figurehead behind it. He wasn't like in control of the creative behind that. Vince was running that. Like Heyman may have been a consultant, but he wasn't like giving the final decision. Same with the NWO. It's like Vince, he didn't understand like how the NWO worked and what made them special. He installed like the main. I do agree, like keeping it the main three guys. Like I agree keeping it with them. And I feel like if it just stayed with them three, it probably would have lasted longer and stuff. And the fact it didn't get rehashed so much in WCW, we probably would have accepted more. But yeah, yeah, I don't know, man. I just feel like because it's WWE, it's a WWE branded NWO, that's why it didn't last and stuff. Also, how do you feel if you swap out The Rock and Austin? Do you think this still would have been big, like what it is and stuff, if they had
Not what
Austin?
it is, but it would have been big, but not what it is. No, and I don't think in the ring it would have been
Hmm.
what it is either.
Yeah, because they had been talking about that for a long time. What would happen if Austin Hogan got in the ring? I don't know if
Because
that would. Yeah, I don't know if that would have hit the same. As far as like
nah,
in the match and stuff.
and I think the match, both what The Rock and Hogan, they're big on theatrics,
Yeah,
their wrestling style. And Austin, especially as he got older and had the neck injury, he was more like a brawler type.
yeah,
And that match needed the theatrical stuff, the theatrical acting that I don't think Austin would have done like The Rock did. The shock of like the crowd turning on him. I think Austin could have been dastardly, but I don't know. I don't think that Austin has, and Austin has things as a wrestler that are better than The Rock, but I
mm,
don't think for what was in that match, I think The Rock is better than Austin. I think The Rock is better at giving the facials. He was better at overselling and making that shocked look and being like, "What?" Austin didn't do that.
yeah. Do you think the crowd would have turned on Austin like they did The Rock?
Maybe. I don't know.
Because you rarely like. I can't remember the time where you see the crowd. They didn't even turn on Austin the year before when he turned heel. You know what I'm saying? Even granted, they were in his home state of Texas, but people didn't want to boo Austin during that heel run. So it's like you rarely see people like turn on Austin, whether he's heel or face, because he's just that
You
appealing.
I don't know if Austin. I think you would have heard like "Let's go Austin, let's go Hogan." I don't know. Like The Rock was getting like half cheered but half booed,
Yeah,
and like both at some points the cheers kind of matched the boos. Other points the boos overpowered the cheers.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I
Like,
don't think Austin they would have got that with Austin. No, I don't think so. Yeah. You had to have. It would have been worse. I don't. I'll say this: we don't call it a great match if it's Austin and Hogan. We're not
yeah,
calling it a great. I don't think it's remembered nowhere near as much as this match is. Like not even close. So yeah, that I was glad that this match got the highlight it deserved, and it reminds me of the Andre the Giant documentary when WrestleMania 3 gets like a lot of. I was getting those same kind of feels on how they did it and how they showed it. And that might be my favorite part of the whole docuseries was that episode 3, Hogan and The Rock. That might be my favorite part.
yeah, yeah, yeah. For me as well. I like how they expanded on that and stuff like that. So yeah,
So, we can keep, but I want to get to a lot of the controversial stuff. So we know Hogan comes back to WWE and has a run, and his body was failing on him. But there's a lot of just the controversies that go on, and and they left some stuff out really. And I know it's easy to point that out, but I know it's hard. But we talked, on the first episode, like Hogan knows best kind of was a way. And I remember when that debuted, it really was a way to get Brooke Hogan. I'm glad they did say that. It was a way to get Brooke Hogan, like she wanted to be a pop star, to like elevate her. I mean, Brooke Hogan did get known. I don't think she ever really crossed over music wise. She became just a reality, not just, but she was a reality TV star, but didn't get the pop star push. But
hmm,
that show was big. It was popular, but in a way, I do feel like, and this docuseries was kind of alluding to that it led to a lot of problems for the Hogan slash like really Balea family.
yeah. And it's like a double-edged sword. It's like he did it in a way to kind of spend more time with his family because his career was winding down, his body was like failing on him and stuff like that. He was limited in the ring, so he needed something to kind of like keep the money coming in. You know what I'm saying? So this is a way for him to like spend time with his family, kind of like kill two birds with one stone. Spend more time with his family and keep the money coming in, and also help his daughter, launch her music career and stuff like that. So it started out cool. Like I remember watching the show when it first came on. Like the first season was cool, and it kind of like he said, brought in a whole new audience, like the female demographic, because mostly women they mostly watch reality TV shows, so that gained him like a whole new female demographic, because they seen him like how he's doing it, how he's handling his parenting skills with his kids, with Nick, and him being like the Bart Simpson of the crew and stuff, and Brooke, wanting to be a pop star, and he's trying to keep her in check, being the overprotective parent and stuff like that. Because I'm still trying to figure out why she was 16 dating a 22-year-old. I'm still trying to figure that out to this day.
Yeah, I don't.
But
Besides the fact, I mean, I don't know, were they really dating or was that just
yeah, because it's like with reality TV, sometimes you don't know if it's like script or a narrative they trying to do to make something more
yeah.
exciting or something, or if that was real. But yeah, I thought that was just kind of weird. Yeah, but it's like it was cool. But I feel like it kind of did overexpose him a little bit because, like they said on the docuseries, like when real problems did come up, you know, they couldn't really discuss it and talk about it like a real family should, because you got cameras in your face 24/7, and they got to film the next season of Hogan Knows Best. So it's like you can't really talk about it in private because you got a camera in your face. So all that's getting exposed and being broadcasted on national television for the whole world to see, you know. So I think that caused like a little rift and the family and stuff like that, and maybe even had led to like the divorce and stuff, which I'm sure we'll probably get into later.
No, I think you're right, and I think it did. It highlighted more attention, more everything, and it's one of those things where you 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 can understand on paper why, but sometimes like you got to think about it. Like, man, you're letting all these things in here. You're kind of already on shaky ground. Don't do it. You know, I'm not here to judge anyone, but I think sometimes we see the dollar signs and we get it, right? You got responsibilities and people have families to take care of. I'm not saying it's easy at all to make those decisions, but it's just like sometimes it's like, wait a minute, man. There's other ways here, other things you can do because I do think that I'm not saying that they would have still been happily married and stuff like that if this show doesn't have. I don't know those things, but you knew with that attention you weren't going to be able to do the self-reflection and really fix stuff that you need to, like due to time, due to the attention, due to all these other things, responsibilities. And I do think it led to a lot of stuff that maybe was going to happen anyway, but it made it come quicker and hastened it up a bit. I did appreciate and respect, especially Linda, her candidness in like episode 4 about like their marriage falling apart, and I think I appreciate her being very honest, and I like that about she wasn't trying to make herself look great, and that made me kinda like Linda. This made me look at Linda Hogan totally differently, this docuseries, than I did before, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate the honesty and stuff, the transparency, which I'm sure had to be hard because, like, just like the reality show, once again, you're putting yourself out there, and you're talking about things that are personal and private. You're sharing this with the world basically because it's on Netflix. It's going to be everywhere. So yeah, how she went into detail about Hogan was having an affair with one of Brooks, I guess, managers or something like that, because she was, I guess, like a manager or something like that.
Like a yeah, like, I forget the exact title, but, like, they because Brooks, was young
Yeah,
on the road, so, like, you have, like
because they
not
said her. Because they said her friend, I was like, your friend. I was like, Brooke was
not
like
yeah.
16. I was like, hold up, wait a minute.
Right, right, right. It's like the den, like a no, I would say den mother. That's bad. That's not what it is.
I
But
thought like
like,
manager or something, or like assistant or
it's
whatever. I don't know.
like a guardian to look out, like people to look out for you.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
So I was like, okay, she had to be older. 'Cause I was like, no way, she's like the same age as Brooke. But I'm sure, like, the more time they spent with each other, they probably became close and they became friends. And of course, Hogan got to meet her too and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, when I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, it's about shit's about to hit the fan now. The housemaid found the earring in the bed.
yeah.
Like man, you brought her home. I was like, you wildin', Slim, you wildin'. don't shit where you sleep.
That just showed he didn't care or
Yeah,
wasn't thinking or whatever because yeah, that's really bad, man. Like it's bad. It's a bad action to do, but like you said, doing it at the house and like
yeah. I'm trying to figure out like what I mean. I don't know. I can't speak, and I don't have any answer for like why people cheat and stuff like that. You would think like they was good because it's like they've been together for like 25, 30 years or something like that. You would think everything's all good, but it's more to meets the eye. You never know what people be going through, what they dealing with, and what makes people
yeah.
to cheat and go out
I
there.
I don't know what it is. I don't know either. Part of me thinks ego, like I'm not getting the attention from you I deserve or I need or whatever. So other people are giving me attention. It feels good. I'm gonna go to that. I think so. Ego is there. I think just impulse decision. I think a lot of us, to an extent, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of us, at some level, we have impulse. Like we have a ooh, I like. It could be anything from sex, drugs, and alcohol. To shopping, gambling, to chocolate, to sweets, to food, to whatever the case may be. We have like like something we have to. It takes more effort to have discipline. So I think some people it's just that first. They're not thinking logically. They're just thinking, "Hey, I'm getting attention, and I like this," and they're not thinking what it'll do to their spouse, their children, reputation, all those things.
Yeah, man. So yeah, I definitely think that definitely hurt the family for sure, and it bled over. It bled over into the reality series too. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So,
Mhm. It definitely went down. Then man, that was tough. I remember this. I remember Linda dating the real young dude,
which is Nick's friend, I think.
Nick's friend, and it
Yeah,
coming out like I didn't know that he said he was 25. That's what she said. I just remember them saying he's 19. He's 9. I remember that, and I was like, "Whoa, this is bad here. This just looks real bad."
that's even worse. That's even worse than Hogan messed with the other girl, who I would imagine she was probably in her 20s or something at the
I
time,
would at
maybe
least, yeah,
at least. I'm just like,
that
that's
was
even
rough.
worse. That's even worse. He's of age, but still like rocking the cradle a little bit. You know what I'm
Barely of
saying?
age. But like it's also she talked because then I would hear that I didn't know how true it was, and it makes sense. 'Cause when this first happened, I remember Brooke was mad at Linda and not talking to Linda, and a lot of things have gone down. Nick wound up going to jail. That's not talked about in here.
Yeah, I remember that story came up too, where he got in the car accident and him and his buddy they was riding together and he spiraled out of control. The car crashed. Nick was fine, but his friend wasn't. His friend didn't die, but he suffered like some permanent brain damage. He's like basically a vegetable now.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought either vegetable or paralyzed state. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, he's like permanently brain dead. It's a sad situation.
and I don't
So
know if Nick. I know Nick was speeding. Crazy. Did Nick have alcohol in his system or something, or was it just he
I
was speeding?
I don't know, like looking at the show, what I'm saying, he's just like being like a dumb kid, what I'm saying, just doing reckless stuff. So I don't know if he was like drinking or anything like that, but I just know he was just being reckless on the road. So intoxicated or not, like you driving recklessly, you putting yourself and your buddy in danger, and unfortunately one of y'all end up getting the short end of the stick, and then ended up being his buddy and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
and Nick got charged, and he
yeah,
did time. He did some
yeah,
time for
yeah,
that.
and even though Nick, he's fine now, but he has to live with that because his friend is like his life is ruined now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I think that took a toll on Hulk, on Linda, on Brooke. They really did go through a lot of stuff these years. I look at then the sex tape came out for Hulk, and that was rough, and that was bad. But at that point, when that comes out, what year is that? 2012, 2013.
2012. He was already divorced by then and stuff.
So for guys like us, we're in our 20s. I'm 20, what, 25 around that, or no, 23 around that time.
I'm
You're
20.
Yeah, so we're younger, but that doesn't really. I'll speak for me. You knew what wrestling was, so that part didn't get me. I know it made other people not feel good about Hulk Hogan, but I didn't really care about that. I don't know how you felt.
Yeah, it's like, which is kind of it's crazy to me, that double standard, because it's like he had a sex tape come out, but he was still allowed to come back and be inducted to the Hall of Fame for a second time with the NWO and everything, get welcomed with good graces. But yet, China,
Right.
who got into the adult film industry and stuff, did a few flicks and whatnot, and they used that as an excuse to not give her her flowers. Yes, they did induct her to the Hall of Fame as part of DX, which that's important too. She was a big part of that, but she also deserves her recognition as a solo act, because I feel like she accomplished a lot more as a solo star than she did with DX, and I feel like they're not giving her her just due, but they're using her past with the adult film industry and stuff. They're using it as an excuse to not give her her flowers and stuff like that. But yet Hogan had one sex tape and stuff. Paige, she had, her stuff leaked. You know what I'm saying? They still brought her back, no problem, but China, they're using that as an excuse to not give her flowers and stuff. So I just feel like that's interesting, that whole double standard and stuff.
It
How they
is a
how they
double
pick and choose
standard.
with certain people and stuff.
Yeah, it shows it's a patriarchal, misogynistic society we live in, because there's no, for me, there's no thing you can say that will justify, that can be like, oh, I get why he was allowed back, but why she's not allowed. But like, there's nothing you can say besides it's just misogynistic kind of behavior,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, the only one I give him is Paige, because her stuff was leaked. That was totally private. But China is like, you know, and Hogan, I know his stuff. He was being recorded without his knowledge, so he was leaked also. But still, it's like you bring him back and stuff. But China, she's still like on the outside. It doesn't feel right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I want to ask you, because then the next scandal after the sex tape and the Gawker stuff was obviously the big one in a lot of ways, was the racial slurs Hogan saying. And I want to ask you, do you think the documentary really covered that well?
I think they moved on from it. I mean, I'm surprised they went into as much as they did, but I feel like they moved on from it too quickly. Like, I feel like they could have talked about it a little bit more. Also, I'm disappointed that they didn't get Brooke Hogan to do any interviews for it. Like, they did use the audio um recording of her from like 2021 talking about it, but they could have got her on. Like, they had Nick, they had Linda. You know what I'm
I
saying?
don't
Like,
think Brooke wanted to do it.
I mean that too, but still, it's like you could have reached out and stuff. You could at least try to reach out or something like that.
Well, do you know that they, I guess, maybe you do. I didn't know if they did or didn't. If they,
I mean, I don't know if they did, but they could have tried to, because it's like especially at least for that moment, and then when they got talking about the reality show, like they could have like brought her up, because it almost made they kind of made it seem like almost like she didn't exist. Like, they did bring her up, and she pops up in the home videos and stuff too. They do mention her. Obviously, you have to, but it seems like they kind of made it seem like she almost didn't exist. Almost, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like her story, her it's part of her story too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Nick, he has his time to talk. Linda, she's candid. She has her time to talk. Brooke, I'm sure she has things she probably wants to say, but because you know her relationship with Hogan up until his death, she probably doesn't have anything to do, probably. But I feel like they're kind of missing part of the story right there. And I think that's why they moved on
well,
from that a little
yeah.
quickly, because it was about her, because he didn't want his daughter dating broke, N words and stuff like
Hmm.
that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Brooke Hogan was on Bubba the Love Sponge show
Mhm.
very recently, when right after a couple days after the documentary was released, talking about the documentary on Netflix and what they left out. And pretty much she's talking about they left a lot of stuff out, and she's like, they presented it as more of a revelation kind of thing than like these are things that we already knew. And like, so she didn't like that. And she said that they left out like 98% of like the real stuff.
Mm.
So you can go on. I mean, you're on YouTube now, but if you want to hear what Brooke has to say, you can go to Bubba the Love Sponge show. It's I think probably audio too. I'm pretty sure. That's where I saw it first, but you can watch it on YouTube as well. But she explains. It says Brooke Hogan explains what Netflix left out in the Hulk Hogan doc. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm not surprised. I imagine they left out quite a bit, but you said they left out 98%,
that's what she said.
and we're just talking about like the part about the racist comments, just that part,
No, no.
or are you talking about like the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I imagine they left a lot out. I mean,
She said it's a showcase piece, and in my opinion, this is a quote. In my opinion, it was missing about 98% of critical real life factual information. End quote.
and that's why I say like they should have had her on because she could have filled in the gaps.
I'm with you. If they just didn't ask her or
Yeah,
try to ask her, then that's a problem for
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Now, if they asked her because everyone has a right and she just didn't want to do it, then I can't blame the producers
yeah.
like a
Because it,
director of it.
yeah, because then it makes her look bad. Because why are you complaining that they left out stuff and you could have just went on and told your side and told your piece and filled in the gaps and stuff. But I mean, we don't know. We don't know who reached out to who or who declined or whatnot. So we don't really know. You know what I'm
We
saying?
don't.
But
We don't. I mean, and maybe I got some of this interview. There's probably I know there's more I gotta listen, so maybe we get those things answered. I am probably when we're done later on the night. I'll probably watch the rest of it to see what she says. But
yeah,
I did feel it was rough not having her in it, and it
yeah,
was rough not.
especially for that part.
Yeah, yeah, and it was rough at least not addressing it, which I know is painful to do. I know it's not easy, but I think that's what's if you didn't have her in it, but you talk about like a riff, I'm more okay with that as a viewer than it was almost like yeah, it was I felt we were shortchanged.
Yeah, and they didn't even talk about like how they became distant and stuff like that. They didn't even mention
That's
it.
what I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
they skated all past that, jumped right into the end and stuff. That's why I feel like they moved on from that too quickly. I'm like, hold up, there's more meat on the bone. Like, what are y'all doing? Like, no, bring it back real quick. There's a lot more going on here. Like, what's going on?
I agree. I agree with that. And I feel like he tried to gloss over it in the interview anyway. He still didn't give you a lot and didn't say much and just like I should have addressed it more and been more direct about it and I'm just like
Still not getting it.
he still was disappointing. Sadly, this was the final like interview he did up until the end. Like you said, he's still not getting it. Yeah.
Yeah, and even Triple H brought it up because he was on there too, and he said like, a lot of people they just felt the way they felt because they felt like Hogan didn't atone for one the comments and any other past mistakes or transgressions he made in the past, and he didn't like own up to it, or he didn't seem sincere, with the apology and stuff like that. So that's why we still feel a way that we do about Hulk Hogan or Terry Bollea. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. I appreciated Triple H. I'm glad you brought that up because I appreciate his candor, his honesty, because especially protecting the brand, he could have gave a different, but he said I was the one who had to call him and let him know, and yeah, he didn't. And I think that's him. I think Triple H believes that the way he said it. Like I don't think he was given like, well, other people didn't. I think he felt like you didn't really atone. You never really did.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, and of course it's out there now. Like Triple H's mother-in-law, she's on the she's on the cabinet, for Trump and stuff like that. So it's safe to assume that who we voted for and stuff like that. But he doesn't like act like those people and stuff like that. And I think maybe that's because of who he works for, and they don't bring politics into the business for that reason. Because Bruce Pritchard brought up that you don't want to get into all that stuff like that. You don't want to bring social issues into that. But Triple H, he knew it's like he not rocking with that. I know Triple H, he has like some people like to bring accusations like he don't push black wrestlers like that, but you actually see like quite recently we've seen he's pushed like quite a few black wrestlers.
Well, yeah,
So
you're right. You're
I mean
right.
it's like a thin line between that, but he's proven like hey he's spread the pot around, showing like hey like we're trying to be more diverse and stuff like that, regardless
Well,
of who he may side with politically and all that
let's
stuff like
look
that.
at what we see in the documentary when Hogan passed, and that first was it Raw, like at like 30 hours after he had, or however long after he passed away, not that long. When you see Jimmy Hart, like a lot of old school Ted DiBiase, they're there for that, and when he addresses The current wrestlers, what he says, yeah, we're going to honor, and he says the right words. I think it's nice. Like,
Yeah.
will we be here without him? But I understand if those who don't want to go out there, and I think for those comments, that's what he was talking about. Well, I don't think it was about Donald Trump or any of
Yeah.
that stuff. I think it was about those comments
Yes.
and looking at people of color
Yeah.
being, and I guess white people, if white people who didn't get down with that. So anyone, if you don't want to go out there, I understand.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really what it is. Like, they said like, oh, he got booed at that first Raw Netflix because they're in California, it's a blue state. It's because he didn't like fully atone. He wasn't sincere in his apology, and they never addressed the comments and stuff like that. Going back to '93 when he came back after the steroid allegations and stuff, he just came back like and act like nothing ever happened. Same thing when he came back after the racist comments. He just came back like, oh, business as usual. Hulkamania's running wild. Like, no, like, bro, you got to address this. Like, he may have went on NBC or CNN, whatever, and gave his little half-ass apology there. Address the people that your core fans, people that watch you every day, like the wrestling fans. We're the ones that need that apology. He should have went out in the ring and addressed it there. Um, Never did. They just skated over it like nothing happened, business as usual, and that's why he got that reception he did at the Raw Netflix
yeah.
in L.A. You know what I'm
I
saying?
and I
So
think I think if he really atoned for it, I think he still would have gotten booed in LA, honestly. And what I don't like is they were making it a red state, blue state thing, but that's wrong. And I don't like that at all. That's not why he got booed in Cal. I mean, is California blue? Yeah, but Undertaker
I'm about to
openly
say
voted for Trump
he got cheered.
and he got cheered, got a big ovation. So I'm like, get out of here with it. Wasn't about the Trump thing. It was about those comments.
And I mentioned, Triple H, Linda McMahon, she's on the cabinet. And, Triple H, obviously, he's probably down with all the. Triple H was just at the White House last year, you know what I'm saying, with
Mm-hmm.
Trump and stuff. And, even last night, I'm sure you heard on the news, like they had like a little incident at the White House, and everything.
The
Shane,
Correspondence Center, yeah.
yeah, Shane McMahon and Linda, they were there, you know what I'm saying? So but they don't get booed nothing because they not like malicious and stuff like that. They're not like acting all radical and all that stuff like that. So it's like they able to keep it peaceful. It's like, and there was a time where it didn't matter who you voted for. It's like, okay, you go and vote and everybody just come back together. It's like, all right, I don't agree with this and that, but it wasn't like what it is now, where it's just like chaotic, like, oh, you got to pick a side, like it's like a civil war or something, like Marvel or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nah, it was that, and that's why. Now, do I think he could have gone to other places and not have been booed for that first Raw on Netflix? Yeah, I do think other parts of the country would not have booed him. He would have gotten cheers, you know. And so there's, which is a little bit of political but social commentary, honestly, in my opinion. But I'm like, nah, he didn't get that booing because he stumped for Trump. Because now he stumped louder for Trump than Undertaker. Yeah, he was louder, but everyone knew Taker had him on the podcast. Taker, people, Mick Foley talked about Taker doing that and stuff. I just say I don't like that. That was BS. And I say BS by the people talking, including Hogan. And I get it, but BS by the filmmaking team too for that stuff. Like, that ain't what it was.
Yeah, and the fact they actually had Trump on the documentary, I'm just like, how did y'all pull this off? But he loves the spotlight, so of course
And
he's gonna jump at the chance to
and
get on
Hogan,
there.
did a favor probably for because Hogan helped him get votes or something.
Right, right. I was just like, when he popped out, I was like, I almost cut this thing off.
Well, he showed up so early.
Right. I was just like,
I was like, come on, man.
I'm like, bro. I was like, really? I was like, shouldn't he be signing like a bill or something? Like, what are you doing?
Well, I think it was trying to justify, and to me, why are you trying to justify who you voted for?
Right.
You voted for him, but it was like, well, we're friends and blah blah blah, and I'm like, are you friends or business associates? And let's say they were friends. I'm not here to say that they are or not. I think yes, I'm with you. I'm like, I don't think you were friends. But now that's the narrative. I was kind of, but it's like you're a hypocrite. I was ashamed, but I voted for him in 16, but I didn't tell him. And then 2020, but in 2024, and when they took a shot at him, that's my friend. And now he's using that like that's where my patriotism comes in, and I'm openly supporting Donald Trump and yada 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 because of that. And it's like, bro, if that's who you vote for, that's who you vote for. What's this shame? I have no shame in the people I vote for because I have no allegiance to them. Where that's I can tell you why I voted for them, and if I like the job that they're doing, I'm like yes. Or I have no problem saying, yeah, I voted for him or I voted for her, and they're doing a terrible job. Like that's how it should be. But I'm not ashamed to say I did vote for that. But I thought they were going to do this. They're doing that. Like when I hear there's a shame, I'm like, why is that? Why is there a shame? Because you know what's up.
Hmm.
You know what's up, and you know it's divisive, and you know it's hateful, but you're still out for your own agenda.
Right, and especially since he didn't atone for those certain comments they made years ago. You know what I'm saying? So you're showing even more your colors now. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
So
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it. What a documentary I can say did well was I still when you got to the end and obviously we knew what happened. We knew he had passed, but you saw like his body, just all the punishment of the years in the ring
yeah.
breaking down on him.
Yeah, it was rough seeing them, walk around the house with that cane and stuff. Like he's barely like getting up, and Nick having to help him up. Like it looked rough. I mean, I think, well, he was like 71 at the time when he died, or 72.
Yeah, 71 going on 72, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, he was already up there in age and stuff. I mean, he was still like in pretty good shape for 71, though. But you can see like all them leg drops. They took a toll on him.
He had the
So
physique
yeah,
for 71 still. Like he still looked great, but then his body was not of his body probably was of someone much older. Like what it could do as far as like moving around and stuff like that. Like in my opinion.
yeah.
Like, that but that's the punishment that wrestlers in the past and still presently. I mean, I think we're more advanced with medical and stuff, but when I see the wrestlers today, I'm like, man, you're putting your bodies through a lot. Like the men and women.
Yeah, and someone brought, I think, like Booker T, because he was on there too, and he brought up like, well, what if Hogan had changed up his finisher instead of dropping the leg? Because it's like when you fall down, like you're falling down like on your hips and all that stuff like that, and it's running up your back and stuff, so it's wear and tear on like your hips, your lower back, your bottom, and all that stuff like that, and that over time, when we see that just gave him problems and stuff.
And I think because the leg drop's iconic, right?
Yeah,
Something so basic, but yet everyone knows. You say what's Hogan's moves in the ring? It's the hulking up and pointing and the shaking the finger. It's the doing the ear thing and the leg drop. Right, go that leg drop is big. So I get it in the '80s doing it, but definitely when you get to the early '90s and like he should have stopped. Then I'm with Booker. You should switch up your
yeah. Yeah,
finisher.
when he turned heel, that's when you should have made the switch. You should have
Hmm.
changed it up. He should have did like maybe a submission move, like a sleeper hold or something like that. Something where it's like less wear and tear on his body. You know what I'm saying? Especially like his hips and stuff, where he doesn't have to fall down. But I get like it's iconic, right? That's his thing. Um, you know what I'm saying? By that time, he was like already in his 40s. You know what I'm saying? So he really should have slowed.
Yeah,
He really
yeah,
should have slowed down on that. You know.
absolutely.
Which is crazy because Triple H, his finishing move for years was the pedigree, and he has to fall down on his knees. But he doesn't really, even though he tore both his quads, he doesn't really have like knee issues and stuff. He's still walking around fine.
Mhm. Mhm. But he wasn't coming. Hogan would get good air
Yeah, oh, yeah.
on those too, like
Triple H would get some good air too, though.
which maybe he shouldn't have done. But I see. I didn't think Triple H did, but not to me. Hogan. If I watch a lot of his matches, especially in the '80s, all of them are like. There's not one where I'm like, okay, he kind of was like mid. All of them, he gets good air, and like that fall, that hit is more.
Yeah,
Well, Triple H does have some, but Triple H also has some basic ones too, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah, I think it's crazy because he's like, you would think his knees be messed up, like they should be shattered by now, especially after two quads and stuff. But
Hmm.
maybe I guess the knee pads, he might have some extra padding or something like that.
Maybe, maybe.
Or just knew how to fall the right way. I don't know, but you know,
I tell you, it was. I felt empathy and I felt sadness when you get to the end and Hogan dies, and even the Bruce Pritchard, and like he found like that morning, like they interviewed him like that day or the next day or whatever, the day after that, like he finds out, or I think it was like 4 hours later. It was like he had found out that Hogan died. Like he said, Eric Bischoff had called him, and I did feel for a lot of the people in the documentary, because I think Jesse Ventura said it best. He was like, "That's the end of my era." And I'm like, that's exactly it. Even though Jesse's still alive, Ted DiBiase, Hacksaw Jim Duggan's been through some health
Flair.
scares. Flair, both of them been through health scare, but they're still alive. That was the end of that era with his death. Like and I'm like, Jesse Ventura summed it up perfectly. And Jesse and Hogan had beef. Hogan ratted on Jesse trying to start a union back in the 80s. So I was surprised to see Jesse in there, but I appreciate Jesse's words and I appreciate his candor and I appreciate like that honesty. Like that's what I felt that July 2025 day when I found that. Like it's the end of an era for a lot of us.
Absolutely, man. It's like um, you can feel how you want to feel about Hulk Hogan, or I'll say this: feel how you want to feel about Terry Bollea. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Because Hulk Hogan, that's the character he played on TV and stuff. Like that's the guy that made us fall in love with pro wrestling and stuff. He's the reason why we're here today, why we have this podcast, why WrestleMania is here, why wrestling is blown up to this big pop culture phenomenon that it is. That's Hulk Hogan. You know what I'm saying? Whether he's a heel or face, you know what I'm saying? You just were captivated by him. Terry Bollea, that's the man. You know, complex individual, flawed for sure. Um, definitely had a lot of issues with him. You know what I'm saying? That's where I feel like, yeah, it's complicated. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like Hulk Hogan, he's iconic, but Terry Bollea definitely has issues, and yeah, probably not the best human being. Whether lying, cheating, you know what I'm saying? Also, a little bit racist and stuff like that. Just ignorant, whatever like that. Um, Attention hungry, you know,
Yeah,
just wanted
yeah.
just wanted to be in the spotlight and stuff like that. Just like they said, like being a mark for his own gimmick. You know what I'm saying? Just being full of himself. I mean, there were some good parts about him, about the real man Terry Bollea too. I mean, you could tell he loved his kids, he loved his family, he loved the business of wrestling and stuff like that. Loved entertaining fans. Still not the greatest human being. You know what I'm saying? When you hear about all the other stuff going on behind the scenes and stuff.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Tim, I'm going to ask you two questions. The first one is, how do you grade episodes 3 and 4?
Um, I think I definitely enjoyed it more than the first two episodes. I feel like, like I said at the beginning, like it's definitely more juicy, a lot more details. Even though we kind of knew about a lot of stuff, but they definitely like got into it, like a lot of juice, the stuff that we wanted to talk about. Only thing is, I wish they could have got Brooke Hogan involved in some type of way, and they could have expanded more, like on the racist comment scandal. They could have expanded on that more. But it was still good. It was still a good watch. I would say I gave the first two episodes, like a
B
B plus.
plus? Yeah.
Yes, I just give it a solid B. I just give it a solid B.
I think I'm with you. I'm with you on the B for this. Both of them are B. This one was the 3 and 4 were juicier, but then it left stuff out.
Hmm.
And I think it left out things more than the first two episodes, in my opinion, which disappointed me. But it was more juice and drama filled.
Yeah,
But I'll give it a B. And I guess, would you say overall you feel like a B is your grade for it?
yeah. Overall, it's a B, just because I feel like okay, like it's Hogan and stuff like that. So of course, regardless how you feel about it, we're gonna tune in because it's wrestling, and we have this
Hmm.
podcast, we have this platform to talk about it. So, but I do feel like they could have went into more detail about certain things, especially those comments, and other things too. But it's like four parts. It's like an hour between them. Two of them. This could have been six parts, like Vince's thing. They could have made this like a six-part thing. I don't know why they didn't do that. And also, like, I'm still disappointed they didn't get Brooke involved. Whether she declined or not, we don't know. I feel like there's definitely some story bits missing by her not telling her part of the story. You know what I'm saying? Because she's saying like 98% is missing. I'm like, well, you should have had her involved. So that's what brings it down for me. But
If they
overall,
didn't, we don't want to say that we don't
yeah,
know yet
Yeah, we don't know yet.
We're not sure yet, but I totally agree. If they did not reach out to her, didn't make much effort to reach out to her, then that's messed up.
Yeah, and the fact it seemed like you said, they're trying to paint a narrative by including Trump and stuff like that, and trying to paint it this way and this and that. Yeah, but yeah, overall, it's just like a B. It's a B overall for me for the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Now the Mr. McMahon docuseries, did that come out in 25 or 24?
24.
So this is this really the first Netflix doc since the deal, since like WWE deal? Is this like their first one? You was like original doc? Do you want to see more? Is there something you want to see more of? A more
Yeah,
WWE Netflix documentary
for sure,
combination?
for sure. I mean, well, the deal was already signed with Netflix, like even before that. They just didn't officially air until 2025, but the deal was already inked, in 2024, because they had already started advertising going to Netflix like in the summer of 24 and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I know, but like I'm just saying the Vince doc technically
yeah, technically, yeah,
came out like they had
yeah,
been worked on before the
yeah,
deal and
yeah.
stuff.
If we're going by surface level, yeah, then yeah, this would be the Hogan thing would be technically the first the first Netflix like doc, since
Okay.
the Netflix era began and stuff. Yeah.
All right. All right. So off to an okay. B's not a bad grade, so off to an okay start, and hopefully there's more. I would want to see. I love wrestling documentaries, and there's been a shortage, I think, the past couple years with the platform switching and all these deals being made. But I want them to get back to making more.
Yeah, because that Shawn Michaels documentary on Peacock was pretty good too.
Yeah,
I'm,
absolutely.
I'm mad they waited till like after WWE made the move to release that. They should have released it like a year earlier or something.
Right. But this was a lot of fun, man. This was great. So please check out the part one we did on episodes 1 and 2 if you haven't seen that. Please check out this and other videos on YouTube we've done. Like, subscribe, and listen to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. We come out every other Thursday. So for my tag team partner, Mr. Tim Lewis, I'm Deremy Dove. Thank you guys for watching Tables, Ladders, and Conversations.